Okay, as I said, everyone, very, very welcome here today. My name is Brenda Clerkin and I am the Senior Lecturer of Practice within the Accounting Group at Queen's Business School. I'm also Programme Director for the MAcc, in particular for Year 4. Joining me today will be Karl Webb, and Karl is our Business Engagement and Employability Manager at the Business School as well. Karl very much looks after the placement side of things in terms of interacting with our employers and providing the support along the way for those who may need it. So this is, as I said, a short webinar. Elements that we just want to cover on the call today is just to give you a bit of background about the MAcc programme itself, because it is new to the market. We've just had our first cohort through the Year 4, and they just graduated last week there. So we now have the details behind that, which I can share. And then I want to move into just elements around the placement itself. So what does it look like? What might it mean for your business, and what supports are available to your business as well? If you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I have a Q&A just there at the back end of the session. So if you want to hold them until that, or even just type them into the chat function, I'll check in on that at the end of the session. So just introducing the MAcc programme itself. So this was a new programme that got launched last September. As I said, we had our first cohort through. MAcc is a relatively new term. So first of all, what is it? I think we're more used to hearing BSc in accounting or MSc. So this is a blend of the two. So this is a Master of Accounting qualification. And it's a 4-year programme that integrates both undergraduate and master's level study. So the first 3 years of the programme are taught at undergraduate level. And the 4th year, which is the year in which the placement happens, is taught at master's level. It replaces our BSc Accounting programme as an entry route. So students now coming in at level 1 can't come in under the BSc Accounting route anymore. They come in under the MAcc route. So they sign up for the 4 years, but there is an option to exit at the end of the 3rd year if they so wish, and they can exit with a BSc Accounting and the relevant exemptions. Some of the benefits of the programme then, well, first of all, for the students' point of view, they're paying undergraduate fees for all 4 years. So even though that last year is master's level, they still pay the undergraduate fees, which is important as well for employers to be aware of, because some of the employers who have offered graduate roles to the students are sponsoring their 4th year, so their master's year. So instead of paying the typical 8,000 or 9,000 in terms of master's level fees, you're paying the undergraduate fee, which is more closer to around 5k. Students can gain exemption from both CAP 1 and CAP 2 examinations as part of this. And as well, there are other exemptions from it, like the likes of ACCA and CIMA. There are actually 7 bodies that we have exemptions from in this programme. And so we've got the maximum amount from each of those bodies. So if anyone is interested in knowing more information about the exemptions from the various bodies, more than happy to take that offline and answer those questions for you. Another part of the programme then is the paid placement, which is going to be the focus of the session today. And the students also complete a research element in Year 4. And I've mentioned already that if students do want to exit at the end of the 3 years, they can do so. And they'll end up with their BSc Accounting and their CAP 1 exemption. So they only get the CAP 2 exemptions if they stay for the full 4 years. So in terms of how this looks in terms of the degree programme, so the first 3 years of the degree, as it is now, is very similar to what we had under the BSc Accounting programme. So there was only minor tweaks made across the board there. So any student that completes the 3-year degree, they get their CAP 1 exemptions. So that hasn't changed in terms of where we were previously. What has changed then is this bolt-on of the 4th year. Okay, so the 4th year for this programme is run across 2 semesters. The first semester, the students cover 4 taught modules. So topics like financial reporting, auditing, tax, financial management. And I should say at this point that in that Year 4, we are not covering all of the CAP 2 material. Okay, I think anyone who's familiar enough with those exams knows that there is a wealth of information in there, and we certainly wouldn't be able to cover it in that year, and particularly within that first semester. So some of the CAP 2 material is actually covered in the earlier part of the degree, and Year 4 becomes a top-up. There is also a module there around research methods and placement preparation, and that sets the students up for their semester 2, which involves the placement and also a work-related research project. So just to give you a wee bit of background on that work-related research project. This is a separate piece of work the students do. There is no involvement of the employer or expectation that the employer will be involved in that piece of research. This is something that the students will do when they're doing their placement. Some students this year did it before they started placement. Other students left it to the back end when they were finishing up on their placement. So it depends upon when the employers need the students in and what time the student can dedicate to it across that semester too. If a student then completes all of year 4 and completes it successfully, they get their CAP 2 exemptions. And as I noted earlier on, a student can exit at the end of year 3 with their BSc accounting and therefore not move into that year 4 and not do the placement or get their CAP 2s. So it's very much down to the student to determine which pattern they would like to do. So any of the students that are moving forward into the placement will be a year 4 student. They will have all of their examinations done in terms of the CAP 2 and getting their CAP 2 exemptions, because at that stage they'll have covered all the material and being examined on it. So by the time they get out into your organisations, they will have secured those exemptions and they're in the second part of their year 4. Just to give you an idea of where this placement student comes from. So they have all of their technical information completed on their examinations at that point. So you're getting a highly qualified student that's coming through the doors. Okay, I'm just going to pass over to Karl, who will cover off a little bit about placement support. So what does it look like having a placement student come into your organisation and what support is available there for you to do that? Yeah. Okay, sorry, I just see Karl hasn't just joined us, so that's fine, I can pick that up. Okay, so just a bit of background information in terms of the placement. So it is in semester 2. The duration of the placement is between 8 and 12 weeks. Okay, and it really is down to employer need. Okay, so if you feel that you would like the student for 12 weeks, well, that is no problem. If you feel a shorter term placement of the 8 weeks works best, that's absolutely fine. To be honest, in terms of what we have seen this year from the students coming through, it was quite the spread. Some went 8, some went 12, but probably the majority of them fell in around the 10-week. So, you know, whatever suits your business. In terms of the period then, so it's between January and April. So again, this year we saw varying degrees in terms of what, you know, when it suited employers. We had some employers wanted the students straight out as soon as Christmas was over. So they were out pretty much in the first week of January. We had other employers decided, no, I prefer to have them maybe starting in early February or something like that. So it is very much driven by yourselves as employers and not by us in the university. So they are bespoke placements and because of the duration and the timing of them, and hence the reason we're running these sessions to raise awareness and provide a bit more information for you. And students undertake a real recruitment process. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides time. So this is, you know, the student will go through your own recruitment process. So we are not going to allocate a student to you. At the end of the day, you have to make sure that the individual you're getting suits your organisation, suits the skill set that you need in the time period that you need. So whatever recruitment process you wish to go through, maybe it's interview process, maybe it's assessment centres as well, that'll be down to you, and we can provide the support in terms of getting you to that position, which I'll talk about in the next slide or the next couple of slides. I just wanted to give you a flavour as well here in terms of the current employers who supported our students through the first cohort. So to give you a flavour of where our students went. So we have some practice-based employers there, we have some industry-focused, and we have some third sector and charities as well. So right across the board, our students got great experience in each of these types of organisations. And I have to say that where the experience they got was fantastic from all of these employers. They were really taken in through the doors of these organisations and treated like members of staff within those organisations. So, you know, many of them were provided with some kind of a buddy or a mentor along the way, but were treated, you know, in exactly the same way, given access to the same systems and processes, etc., and taken through that process. So, and we're very much thankful to these employers who have supported our students through the last run of our placements, which just ended there back in April time. So in terms of support, if you're thinking that this might be something that will work within your organisation, so what is offered in terms of that? Well, from the student's perspective, each student is allocated a supervisor. So basically someone like myself or another member of the academic team within the accounting group. And we will support that student through right really from the beginning of their placement. So making sure that the employer is happy and contracts are in place and all of that. And then visiting the student during their placement as well. So there'll be a midpoint visit, which we will come to your location and have a meeting between, if it was myself, it would be myself and the student, and then myself and the employer. And then we have a three-way meeting at the end. And really it's no more than an hour, but it's really just as a touch base to see how is everything going? Is there anything the student might need to improve on? Or is there any feedback that, might need to go between the two groups and maybe hasn't been discussed in the office to date? So that's no longer than an hour in terms of your time invested in that. And then there's a follow-up visit at the end as well. So this one we did through Teams calls. So again, not to take up too much time of the employers. So it was a 1 hour Teams call, and that was really just discussing the final leg of the placement and how the student has performed overall. The student, in terms of this module, doesn't get a grade. Okay, so in terms of your input to helping assess the student, you don't have to put together a grade or anything like that. The student is assessed based on whether they have passed or failed the module, based on whether they have attained the learning outcomes. So how do we know if they've attained the learning outcomes? Well, we do ask for employer feedback. So there's a 1-page document that you'll fill in about the student. It's nothing more onerous than questions like what have they done well? What are their development points? How have you seen them maybe grow from their time when they started to the end? So just general feedback, typical of what you would give, through a normal sort of feedback rounds. It's not overly arduous. Students are also required to maintain a reflective diary. And the idea behind this was to mimic something similar to the trainee chartered accountants CA diary. So they will populate this on 2 occasions during the placement, outlining how they have achieved certain skills and experiences. And we just ask the employers review that at the end of the placement to make sure that what the student has in there is actually a true and fair reflection of what happened during the placement. So taking your feedback in terms of that 1-pager and also the student's reflective diary that has been reviewed by yourselves, it is the team at QUB then that will make the assessment as to whether or not the student has passed or failed the module. So just to say, it's not overly arduous in terms of the commitment to the documentation that's required. And indeed, as I said, you don't have to get involved in making that final assessment. So that responsibility will lie with ourselves in QUB. On top of all this support in terms of the supervisor, there's also the placement office. So at any point in time, if there's any questions or queries, or even just getting that placement process up and running, we'd be more than happy to support you through that. There's a very strong team. Placement is something that the business school has been doing for years. It's certainly not new to them. It might be new in the accounting space, but it's certainly not new to the placement office. So there's plenty of support there in terms of getting you up and running with it. And so just for yourselves, and what's the benefits of thinking about taking on a placement student or indeed taking on a placement student? Well, first of all, access to top talent. And we've seen evidence of that this year, as the cohort have just come through. Many of the employers have ended up making graduate offers to the students as they have completed their placement. There is no need for you to do that. This is only if you feel that the student meets your requirements and you have an opportunity that you would like them to fill. So you don't have to feel like if I take a placement student on, I have to have a job for them at the end of it. That is not the case. So it only if it suits your business and you have the space for that. The idea of bringing in fresh perspectives, just with, sort of fresh blood coming into the organisation, that can always be quite refreshing and add fresh perspectives to things. So you will get that. Development of existing staff. Yeah, so again, from what we've seen through our experience of our cohort coming through, many of the organisations allocated buddies or supervisors on their side for the student, and they very much used that as a learning and development opportunity for their own staff to sort of mentor and coach, a younger team member or a more junior team member within their organisation. And then increased productivity and support. So when this program was crafted, we were shoulder to shoulder with the employers when we were doing that. And the reason the placement is in the second semester is because that's when the employers were telling us that's our really busy time of the year. And so therefore, having a placement student come in might help alleviate some of the pressures that are in that sort of post-Christmas phase, right up until Easter and beyond. So hopefully, a valuable team member coming on board that you can, offload some work in their direction to free up other team members within your own organization. So lots of benefits from an employer side in terms of taking on the placement student. So if you're interested and you're thinking that this might be something that your organization could benefit from, I've listed out here just the timeline of what happens next. Okay, so if you think it's something that you'd like to pursue further, first thing is I would ask you to submit an expression of interest, and I'll give you the link to do that in the next slide. All that does is just sort of register your interest, and our placement team will follow up with you on that. So we'll get the discussions going to see, is this something that will work, and maybe what support you need. So maybe you've never taken on a placement student before and you'd like us to collate your CVs, or maybe you'd like us to conduct your interviews or organize your interviews for you, or maybe you just want us to pass the CVs over to yourselves. Every employer is different, and we are more than happy to tailor the support that we have for you as an individual employer. So we would ask that you would express an interest by the 15th of August, and that gives our placement team time then to touch base with yourselves and discuss and set up the placement if this is something that you would wish to pursue. And all the opportunities then get loaded up onto a placement portal, and that placement portal opens up to students on the 6th of October. So pretty much as soon as they come back in semester one, they get to see all the opportunities that are listed there, and they pick and choose then which ones that they would like to apply to. So the information we will need from you for that portal is generally just a job description. It's as straightforward as that. If you need help in putting one of those together, there are lots of generic examples that we can provide you to help build that out for you and get that up on the portal for you. It's then down to you as to how you want the students to apply. Okay, so if you want them to apply through your established recruitment website already, you can just put the link into our portal and the students can apply to that through your own system. It might be the case then that you don't have that system maybe open at that time of the year, or don't have the system at all, in which case then if you want them to apply just with CVs, we can collate those for you and send them off to you by the agreed date. So applications are to be sent then by the 17th of October. So you will know who is applying to your jobs or your opportunities on the 17th of October. And by the 21st of October, then we would ask that you would schedule out your interviews. Okay, so once you know who is going to apply for your positions, just to schedule in your interviews and let us know within Queen's who you're interviewing and when. The interviews and assessment centres run then, if you're doing assessment centres, that is from the 27th of October to the 7th of November, so roughly about 2 weeks there to allow those to happen. Once they happen, by the 10th of November, then offers get released. So if you have interviewed a number of candidates and you would like to give 2 job offers, we would ask that you would communicate those job offers to Queen's placement team, and they will communicate that then to the students. So all students get the offers at the same time. So it's not a matter of I'll do my interviews early and I'll give my offers out early. So all interviews run at the same time, all offers are released at the same time, and the offers, as I said, come from the placement office. The students then have until the 24th of November, the week of the 24th, to accept. And then as soon as the acceptances are given to us by the student, we will communicate that back to yourselves as employers then. In terms of this timescale, it's very similar to what we ran last year. It was crafted on the basis of discussions with employers in terms of how long the placement cycle would need to take, and how long interviews would need, in terms of scheduling and execution, etc. It worked very well last year, and we had all employers working towards these deadlines, and we actually were able to close everything off on the similar week last year, around the 24th of November. So in terms of timing, we'd be asking all employers to follow this schedule. Okay, so maybe just before I open up the floor to questions, which you might have, in terms of next steps, so if you do think this is something that could work for your business, or maybe you want a little bit more information, I would just ask you to express your interest. So you can do that using the QR code here, or indeed if you visit our MAcc placement website, where there's a link there and a QR code. You can type it into Google MAcc placement website. It comes up quite easily. And there's links there to register your interest. And there's also some frequently asked questions there as well. So, and they're all quite employer focused. So maybe if there's any specifics that you'd like to know a wee bit more about, it might be answered in the frequently asked questions for you already. And then I will open the floor to any questions if anybody has anything that they would like to ask at this juncture.
Hi, Brenda. Sorry, I have a question here, Ian Leonard. I'm trying to, in my head, reconcile how this overlaps with, I suppose, the typical graduate recruitment process for a 3.5-year training contract, which, again, I suppose typically runs to a fairly similar timetable in terms of applications and offers and stuff like that. I suppose, is it planned that they will run totally separate, or did you expect, or did you see people almost securing the two at once, i.e. the placement and the offer?
Yeah, no, really, really good question, Ian. And it varied by employer, to be honest. Some of them were able to take them in at the same time and interview them as part of that graduate recruitment process. I have to say the majority of them didn't, Ian. The majority of them ran separate sessions for these guys because, you know, it might have been only 3 or 5 of them that were taken in, and it just wasn't hitting the right time for the usual recruitment process, because a lot of the firms are in and out a couple of times now on recruitment processes, and it varies depending on numbers. So yeah, I would say a lot of them did it separately, but we did have a few that ran it in tandem.
So quite often you'll have somebody who's going into their placement knowing that they have already secured, if you like, a graduate role potentially elsewhere.
Yeah, yes. So maybe let me just clarify that. So if there are any students moving into level 4 who have already secured a graduate role, maybe in second year, maybe they did an internship and they got a graduate offer, those students will not be going through this round again. Okay, so if they've been given an offer elsewhere, we have been finding that the employer, their graduate employer, is providing the placement for them. So the people that are coming through this round are people who haven't secured a graduate offer at that point for whatever reason. Does that make sense? So yeah, you'll not be getting a graduate student who's already got a graduate offer elsewhere.
Okay.
And knowing that they have a contract there afterwards. Yeah, yeah. Sophie, I'm just picking up your question there in the chat in terms of remuneration. So what we would say would be, at least the minimum wage. What we were finding with the employers that came through last year, the majority of them were ever so slightly above the minimum wage. So not too dissimilar to what firms might offer for summer interns. Hopefully that kind of gives you a guide. Any other questions? I might just add, I'll give another minute on the chat there. I might just add in terms of the nature of the placement. So while we are coming from the accounting program, so anything accounting related obviously is important, but not essential. Okay, so if it's accounting, business, finance, anything in that space, we would be happy to look at. So if you have something that you think, oh, do you know what, it's not direct accounting, but it's dealing with numbers, or it's maybe financial modeling or something like that, that all would be considered okay for these types of placements.
Brenda, I'm just picking up a question from Stacey. Stacey just asked, do you all have the right to work in the UK? The majority of our accounting students currently would be what we define as home students. Those who are international will have the access to a student postgraduate visa, which will entitle them to work for 18 to 24 months post-graduation, but all will have right to work for the sake of the placement. at a minimum. So there would be no reason to organise a visa for a placement, because that's already organised through their student visa.
Correct. Yes. Once the work placement is integrated into a program, their student visa permits them to work then. It's just if it's a separate piece of work outside of a degree, you would require a separate visa for that. Yeah. Okay. I think if there's nothing further, we can leave it there. Myself and Karl will be more than happy to answer any questions. I put the emails up at the beginning of the session, so please do get in touch with us if you have any questions at all. And hopefully we'll see some of yourselves offering some placement students down the line in the coming months. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, folks.
Hey, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Brenda.